Hello, and welcome to the National MAPS Committee's Research 101 webinar series. This series, which began last fall, was created to provide students with practical guidance and tools to explore and excel in research opportunities. My name is Grace Akpali, and I serve as one of the National MAPS Diversity Research Liaisons. Joining me today is my fellow Diversity Research Liaison, Manny Bilal. We're thrilled to continue this series today with this session's Putting Your Best Foot Forward, Applying to Summer Research Opportunities. In this webinar, we'll cover key strategies for crafting competitive applications, highlight available summer programs, and share tips for standing out as an applicant. To enrich this discussion, we're joined by three amazing panelists who are eager to share their experiences and advice with fellow pre-meds. Thank you for joining us tonight, and now I'll pass the mic to Manny, and he'll share a few updates about the National MAPS Diversity Research Committee's initiatives and resources.
So hey everyone, like Grace said, my name is Osman, and I'm also the Diversity Research Liaison, a part of the Student National Medical Association. And we have like a big announcement. So for everyone watching who's interested in this topic, please make sure you have this QR code so you can access this research database. That is a really great tool and has a list of all the great internships that are available for undergraduate students to do research at institutions across the United States. And so make sure you have that for sure. Also, as a heads up, we have another event coming up soon on February 10th for those who are interested in the MD PhD program. That is going to be a very special event where we'll have speakers who had went through the MD PhD process or are currently going through it, who can answer any questions you might have and help with application tips and things of that nature. The next event we have is on March 10th, so mark that on your calendars as well. And that one is about how to create a winning WCJRF poster. And the plan for that is to have some speakers that have won the poster award. So make sure you mark your calendars.
Perfect. And without further ado, we're going to get started with introducing our speakers for tonight. So the first speaker we have is Amira. She's a recent graduate of Carleton College, where she earned her Bachelor of Arts in Biology and a minor in Africana Studies. I'm really proud of Amira. She's one of my fellow Region 2 pre-meds. She's very passionate about medicine and has enhanced her academic journey with diverse clinical and research experiences. Currently, she's serving as a medical assistant at Tureen Dermatology, and she supports patient care through surgical assistance, intake procedures, and post-operative education. Her research encompasses global health policy, provider-patient communication, and with findings presented at AMAC last year, as well as the Leadership Alliance National Symposium. She's a current SMA Global Health Fellow and a National Future Leadership Fellow. She's received the opportunity to work on several projects. In addition to her academic pursuits and clinical experiences, she's a proven leader, serving as co-president of the Minority Association of Pre-Health Students and African and Caribbean Association in 2024. Dedicated to addressing health disparities, Amira aspires to be a physician who advocates for marginalized community and promotes equitable healthcare solutions. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Amira. Our second panelist for tonight is Alonzo. Alonzo is a South Florida native and a proud graduate of Morehouse College, where he earned his BS in biology with a minor in public health. Driven by a passion for bridging science and medicine and equity, Alonzo has engaged in rigorous research experiences across diverse fields from cardiovascular science to liver disease. At Morehouse, Alonzo contributed to the C-Phages program, mastering techniques in genomics and microscopy. He conducted impactful research at Morehouse School of Medicine, exploring the SGK1 MCU signaling in cardiovascular health. His summer research projects include investigating microvascular dysfunction at Penn State, the pharmacological targeting of KATP channels for congenital heart defects at Vanderbilt University, and studying the effects of smoking and lung function through AHA HBCU Scholars Program. Currently pursuing a master's in molecular biology and biochemistry at the University of Miami, Alonzo works with Dr. Emmanuel Thomas's lab, focusing on liver diseases and hepatocellular carcinoma. As an ARCS Foundation scholar and participant in programs like the McNair, RISE, and AHA He is committed to leveraging his training to address health disparities. Aspiring to be a physician scientist through the MD PhD pathway, Alonzo aims to transform care for historically disadvantaged communities through research and medicine. Thank you so much for joining us, Alonzo, as well. And finally, our last speaker for tonight is Jose Luis Orozco. Jose is a first-year medical student at UC Davis School of Medicine from Perris, California. He is part of the Academic Research Careers for Medical Doctors, which is the ARC-MD program, which is a 5-year research-oriented track for those interested in becoming physician scientists. He graduated from UCLA with a degree in molecular, cell, and developmental biology and a minor in biomedical research in 2018. During his undergraduate studies, he was a part of many research programs, including Mark Scholars, the HHMI X-Rope program. During his 6 gap years, he conducted research at UC Riverside, becoming a dialysis technician during the height of the pandemic, and was a quality improvement coordinator at Los Angeles Christian Health Centers. Jose is a second-generation Mexican-American and the first in his family to graduate from college. He aspires to use his career in medicine to advocate for underrepresented students and provide them mentorship to succeed in STEM careers. Thank you so much again, also, Jose, for joining us. You guys are so incredible, have accomplished so many things. Like, just reading that by all those bios was just like, wow, I'm inspired, and I'm a med student myself. But one of the first questions that, just to get the discussion started for tonight, how did you guys discover the summer research opportunities that you participated in as pre-med? And you can unmute yourself.
I could go ahead and say that. Okay, great. I looked up on the internet all the summer research programs. There's a lot of them. Almost every single university have them. The toughest part is finding one that fits the summer that you have off. So my school was on the quarter system, and a lot of the schools that I wanted to apply for the summer research programs, they were on semester system. So the calendars didn't align quite as well. So I had to find programs that would either let me show up like a week or 2 early to do the program, or stay a week or 2 later. So that's, I think, the biggest hurdle. But as far as just finding programs, that's like not as hard, but finding a program that works with your schedule is a little bit harder.
Yeah, I can go next. Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk about 2 of the summer research programs that I did, both of them of which I found through just avid searching through Google. So for me as well, I was on a trimester system. So being on a trimester system in college, it can be tricky to find opportunities that align around that end of June that don't start in May. So I took a lot of time, when I had free time, especially during my winter break, to find opportunities to apply to. So that's how I discovered both of the summer opportunities I'll talk about today.
Yep, and I'll just go ahead and hop in here. So it was a little like everyone else said. I really discovered a lot of the research opportunities that I got access to just through simply going to Google and searching them up. Looking up things such as summer research opportunities for undergraduates. It'll take you a long way. It might seem a little minute at the time, but you'll get a host of different opportunities that you can kind of shift through and figure out which ones that you might be leaning towards or not as it relates to your research interests. So I would say just jump on through searching up search engines.
Hey, perfect. And then can you also share, did your school or maybe your bio department provide any resources or guidance to help you secure your summer research position?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that. So 2 of the programs I did, the most recent summer research program was with Mayo Clinic in summer of 2023. Through that program, in terms of guidance, I did ask one of my professors for a letter of rec, but I did get support on working on my personal statement. So I worked with my school's career center to get some guided support on how to clean up my personal statement to really hit home what the program was asking for. So that's that sort of guidance, and also funding. So I also connected with my school's career center to see if there's any available funding for housing for the program.
Yeah. So I would say yes. In many ways, yes. So my professors, they help me navigate. My professors in the biology department is what I mean. They help me navigate applications for summer research programs. And if there was any time that I needed assistance or any advice or even direction, they would kind of like let me know, or I could come to them and kind of get that advice. I will also say that on the flip side of that, I kind of took initiative, like I said earlier on, and looking up those programs and applying for them. But I would say something that was really important is that if you could kind of tap 2 to 3 professors or faculty members and let them know ahead of time that you're going to be applying to summer research opportunities. And if they could serve as like your letter of recommendations, because you'll be applying to a number of them, then that'll be really beneficial, because they'll, know ahead of time that you're going to be sending these programs to them or your applications to them, and they'll just be on notice.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit more of a specific advice to high school students or community college students, because I chose my undergrad specifically because I wanted a school that supported its undergrads to do research. And so I would definitely have, high school students and community college students really think about where they're going to go to school and see if there's like specific programs to help students find research at their university. And then once you're in that kind of smaller ecosystem, then they can kind of more readily help you facilitate into, summer research and things like that. And they have specialized support. At least at my school, they had a specific office for undergraduate research. They had programs for minority students that would help them get more involved in research. So I would definitely look at that when choosing schools, and it'll make it a little bit easier to find letters of rec and to get help with writing the applications.
Great. The next question we have prepared for you guys: how early did you start searching and applying for summer research programs? Would you say January is right on time, or did you start perhaps a little bit earlier or later than now?
Yeah, I would say for me, I started like right after Thanksgiving. So a lot of programs I've noticed, I started to see a lot of like programs would come out with their applications at the end of November, beginning December. And it's also helpful that it's winter break, so you have a bit more leisure time to kind of look through like Google or like your career center websites to find those opportunities. So I spent a lot of my winter break using that time to sort of curate a list of programs that worked for my schedule, that I was interested in, and like had a bunch of like opportunities in terms of like external support after the fact, like throughout the program. So I spent a decent chunk of my winter break searching for stuff. But I'd say like November, December can be a sweet spot, because a lot of those programs will close like January or February or March at the latest.
Yeah, so it was very similar for myself as well. I would say most of the programs I started researching in maybe like mid-fall of this fall semester, so somewhere around there, and then I started applying maybe around December. I would say that it truly just depends on when the application opens for the particular program, because some programs, they don't open until, let's just say, a date in December, or maybe even some a date in January. So it really would depend. So that's why it's important to curate that list, and then in that list, put the opening dates or when the application opens on that list that you're curating, so that you'll know beforehand, well, in December, I'm going to apply for all of these programs. In January, I'll apply for these ones. You can kind of have like a groove, for the lack of better words.
Yeah, I would say like around the time, I would say the earlier the better. I think like before Thanksgiving would be a nice time to start connecting with professors and kind of hinting that you're interested in applying to programs. So that way they could, if they would feel comfortable writing a strong letter, so that way they can already like think about writing it. Sometimes, they'll want you to give them more information to write your letter. So on top of the application, you want to give them, some material for them to work with, certain instances that, you might have worked on them with something. So I would say the earlier the better for the letters of rec. And then, all of that winter break or that Thanksgiving break, you're going to be making your list of, the programs like Amira said. But then from there, you kind of have to start filtering, like, after these are the places that I'm interested in going. and then filtering down to which ones work my schedule, and then filtering down to where's the money right, which is a bigger factor for some than others, but it's definitely something very important to think about, as there's all sorts of different stipulations with housing and payment and that sort of thing. So give yourself time.
Wonderful. And then can you guys let us know how many summer research programs did you apply to? And did you do the summer research program after your sophomore year, freshman year, junior year? When in your undergraduate journey did you start getting involved?
Yeah, I'd say I started getting involved in research my sophomore year. So my sophomore year, I actually applied to 11 research summer opportunities and only got into one my sophomore year. So I will say that's like really important. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Put them in a couple and give yourself the opportunity to get into these programs, because you also have to think that like so many other people may be in the same boat as you applying to those opportunities. So definitely don't just apply to one. I'd say a couple, just to give yourself some grace and think about some options. And then my junior year, I applied to, I think, 6, and I got into 4. And then that's when I was like, okay, this is kind of exciting. And I had another research opportunity then as well.
Yep. So for me, it was similar. I applied, I think usually between 10 to 15. I tried to kind of keep it there. And I will also suggest not putting all your eggs in one basket, just because there are a lot of undergraduate students that are also looking for opportunities and they're going to be applying as well. And I think that if they could take everyone, they probably would, but they just simply can't. And so, just that list we talked about earlier, curating is really important. Just go ahead and apply for all of those, and the cards are going to fall how they might. I will also just say that I got access to it my first summer research opportunity my sophomore year. I was actually I came into college the fall of 2019, so the next year was like the COVID semester, and it was like hectic and crazy for everyone. And so my first semester was my sophomore, the ending of my sophomore year, that I had access to summer research opportunities. And I was not playing. I was like, I'm going to get a summer research opportunity this semester. And so I just applied vastly, and I made sure that I had everything that I needed as it relates to the applications.
You're muted, Jose. You got to click. Yeah, now you're good.
All right, so I did a summer research experience in high school. So I will preface that. Definitely, once you get that first research experience under your belt, it gets easier. People start having a little bit more faith in you. They can call certain people, so it definitely gets easier once you get that first one under your belt. So once I applied my second year, the summer of my second year, I had maybe like 15 places that I wanted to go to, but then with the scheduling conflicts, I brought it down to 5. And a lot of those programs, the dates didn't fit, but they were willing to be flexible with me, so that helped a lot. And then out of those 5, I think I ended up completing 4, and then I got 1. I will say, though, when you're making a list of these schools, make sure to consider broadly. Obviously, it's a lot easier to write about something that you're interested in, but also, don't just apply to names necessarily, because, for example, I went to UT Southwestern for a summer research experience, and we went to a kidney conference in Washington, D.C., and there was all these other big schools that they had their summer undergraduate interns. And it just so happens that my program, they paid me $4,000 for, I think it was 10 weeks, and we got all of the housing paid for. But then maybe someone from Harvard got maybe $2,000 for 6 weeks, and they didn't help them with the housing. So it all depends. And, these are all the stipulations and all the fine print that you should be looking at each program. Obviously, you can't be picky all the time. You're going to take the experiences that you could get, but definitely if you have choices to where to invest your time in, it's good to have all that stuff in mind.
Great. And then the next question we have for you all, did you face any obstacles in finding or securing your position? And if so, how did you navigate them? I know this is a toughie, so I'll give you some time to think.
So I'll just go ahead and jump in because I kind of like it ties into what I said previously. So the obstacle, the primary one for me was one, I had never done research before. So I think that also is to cross that threshold is always like a little strange for I think a lot of people like, well, where do I look? Where do I go? Are they going to accept me? Are they not going to accept me? It's a lot of questions that I think plague your mind at that time. And then also the world kind of shifted as it relates to research programs, how research programs were going to happen in 2020. A lot of them went into a virtual format. So programs either shut down altogether or they were trying to do like a virtual type of orientation because they still wanted to give the students access to the programs they already had committed to. And so I think that was one of the primary obstacles to, remain optimistic, right, about research programs when research was kind of shifting before my eyes. But after that, after the following year in 2021, once the world I think got a little more settled around virtual capacity, what can you do with it? What can you do with hybrid? I think that my confidence surrounding applying for research and getting a research opportunity, a summer research opportunity, kind of it came back. So that was one of the obstacles. Though.
Yeah, I would kind of also lead into like the navigation. My sophomore year, I was looking for summer like research opportunities in public health, and I really didn't have anyone to help me navigate that. At least I went to a liberal arts institution, so we didn't have any like professors specifically that taught in public health or were like in that sort of sphere. So I guess like finding opportunities where I'm like trying to collect letters of rec expressing my interest in public health, but I don't have any professors to like speak to that aspect was a bit tough, trying to figure out who to talk to, who should I connect with in order to help me with this application. I'd say it was an obstacle for me for applying, but it worked out because that's where I interned at Johns Hopkins with the Bloomberg School of Public Health. So it was a really great opportunity.
Yeah, I would say the biggest obstacle, like I mentioned previously, was having the schedules line up and then the letters of recommendation. But yeah, I think those are my two biggest obstacles. As far as like what to write about, a lot of these programs know that it's going to be your first time getting exposed to research, and that's kind of their goal, is to get new people into research and exposed and have them have like a good, meaningful experiences. So a lot of the writing that I did was from like when I applied to undergrad and scholarship. Reuse all your writing and get more eyes on it and make sure it's tailored to whatever you're applying to. But I think those three things were the biggest obstacles to applying.
I just want to make a comment because I really like all the points you guys brought up. And right now, it's interesting how you mentioned that situation you were in, Alonzo, with COVID and them not being to really, or trying to abide by, the opportunities that presented to the people. And right now, there's a similar situation because I'm currently doing research as a postback at the NIH, and there's a hiring freeze going on. So this was just a comment that I wanted to make for anybody watching, was just to like kind of remain persistent and take the advice that our panelists have given here, and to apply widely and to not put your eggs all in one basket, because there for sure are still opportunities there. So just to not be discouraged.
Yes, that's a wonderful point. We're about to get started taking some questions from the audience. I'm going to actually pass the mic to Manny shortly, but we had a few more application tip questions that were prepared. So one of the other questions that we had for the panelists for tonight was, did you have to interview for your summer research opportunity? And if so, how did you prepare for those interviews?
Yes. For my junior year, I entered with Mayo Clinic's Department of Otolaryngology. I did have to interview for that one. In preparation wise, I've done a lot of like interviews. I used to work in the career center, so I felt like I was pretty well prepared for the interview. But I thought a lot about like questions like why am I interested in interning within the Department of Otolaryngology? Like, do I even know what that means? Also thinking about like my character and like also behavioral questions like how do you work well in a team, or like what do you do when there's a conflict? Questions like that were questions that popped up. And also just like my overall aspirations in medicine were questions that a lot of the interviewers asked me. And the only thing I'd say that kind of threw me off was that I had 8 people on the call asking me questions. So it was like a bunch of people, and I'm just kind of like getting a bit sidetracked of like just trying to stay into conversation of like how everyone's asking me questions, and they might be differently worded than others. So I guess just kind of like being prepared to be on your toes is very helpful.
So for me, I didn't have any interviews. I think that I would like to think is like the personal statement or the written, like the writing portion of applications served as the interview for me. I think that also one of the research opportunities I got access to was through a fellowship that I did interview for, and then from there I was able to get a research opportunity just through networking from that fellowship. And so I would say that in any case, if you do get access to a fellowship or some other research opportunity, know that there are other people around that might serve as opportunities later on or in the future, and that you should also take advantage of that. But I didn't have any interviews in a traditional sense of like sitting down and talking with anyone. I did interview with the PIs once I got the opportunity though. So
Yeah, I didn't have any interviews for any of the summer research programs.
All right, thank you guys so much for those insights. And then the next question we had under application tips, did you write a personal statement or a research proposal as part of your application? And if so, what tips can you offer for crafting a compelling one?
Yeah, I did write a personal statement for all of the programs that I did apply to. I'd say my advice when crafting a personal statement is, well, for one, don't expect you to have an amazing personal statement. Offer it. Like this, the words you put on the page the first time you open the document is probably not what you're actually going to end with. So being okay with that and being okay with change. I felt for me, crafting my personal statement was all about thinking about like the beginning, like kind of like what's my hook, what's my like interest or first spark into why I'm interested into your program, and talking a bit about me and my experiences. And I will say, I did struggle when I applied for my first summer research opportunity, kind of explaining my interest, but not having much experience to go off of. So I will say, with more experience you get in research, I feel like making the personal statement to talk about your research experiences becomes much easier. But I'd say having like a flow in terms of like narrative, so something from like beginning to end, at least not jumping all over the place, can be very helpful for crafting a personal statement. And also having someone that doesn't really know you that well also reading it to see like, does this even make sense? I found that very helpful as well.
so for me, the personal statement, I did a personal statement. And I would say that a tip that I would give is, well, one, I would say a personal statement is sort of like a living document. It's going to change a whole bunch. And so the first draft or the 100th draft is not going to be your final. And I would say that in those earlier stages, the narrative is pretty important. What are you trying to communicate about yourself as it relates to maybe research? I think some questions that you might want to ask yourself and trying to think of a narrative is, okay, well, when did I first find out about research? What sparked my interest in research? And then from there, I think those things serve as like building blocks and ways that you can build a narrative and kind of support your overall idea of why maybe this opportunity is so important for you to have access to, or why opportunities in research is important for you in general. So I think that asking yourself some of those questions before you actually start writing is going to help you a whole lot, because it essentially serves as an outline, and you'll find yourself kind of flowing a lot better in your personal narrative.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything my fellow panelists said. I would add to that besides the personal statement, they're not going to have you write proposals just yet. In medical school, they definitely will have you writing like your whole project. But something that is more sciencey that they might ask you during undergrad is potential mentors. So they'll potentially ask you who you can see yourself working with at that institution, why that research interests you. And it could be daunting at first to look at their research, look at their publications, and try to figure out what exactly they do. But I think a good resource is maybe to ask some upperclassmen. This is where kind of like networking helps out. Maybe ask some teachers, to kind of help you understand different potential mentors' research, and then kind of just take it from there. Also, Nature, Science, these like big publications, sometimes they have summaries of articles from those people that are more in layman's terms. So I definitely try to look at those too. And those should help you understand much better.
So I just had a follow-up question, because, and this goes for like anybody, but Amir, you mentioned like kind of like being able to showcase yourself in those interviews that you had, and I was wondering if there was like anything particular that you were paying attention to the interviewers themselves to see just kind of like whether it was a good fit or not. And Jose, you mentioned also like mentorship, so like kind of like just like what like were you paying attention to that helped you figure out that this was going to be a good fit for you in your future?
I definitely say in the case of my group interview, passion. There's a lot of passion. I am talking about, like, I asked a lot of questions about like their program and like future support like throughout the summer and after the fact, and seeing how a lot of the physicians, like the director was also on the call, like talking about how passionate about the program that they started, and talking about like feedback and statistics that they've had from previous students really showcased to me that like, oh, like they're serious, like they really do care about the students that they're selecting into their program, and also like they care about you throughout. Like the program that I was in, like up until I'd say December of 2024, and I did this program June of 2023, they were connected with me, still reaching out. I think my director literally texted me like 2 days ago, like, what's going on with the MCAT? But besides the point, I'd really say being able to tell how expressive they are and passionate really like helped me decide like this is a program that I really like want to get into and be a part of.
And then we just have one last question before switching to the audience questions. Thank you so much for the folks who've already started sending those questions in. But one of the other application tips questions or kind of program selections that we prepared, can you let us know if you did a 6-week or 8-week program and how you determined the length of the program? Because I know summer breaks are pretty valuable in undergrad.
So for me, I believe all of my programs were more than 8 weeks. I think they were between 10 and 12 weeks. So it was definitely like, dang, I'm not going to have any summer at all. But one thing that I did notice is that the programs that I had an opportunity to be in specifically was one called the Summer Translator Cardiovascular Science Institute. Is at Penn State. They allowed you to, fly for like a week if you had like a vacation or something planned with your family. Or so they definitely make those types of allowances because I think that they recognize that these programs are hosted during the summer. And, during the summer for a lot of students is when they are with family, because during the semester, especially if you may be out of state or if you moved away for college, you're not around your family as often. And so I noticed that people that were in my program and myself, we went on vacations. One of my colleagues that was in the program with me, she went on like a cruise while in the program. As long as she was making sure that she was kind of keeping updated with everything, it was perfectly fine. So I would suggest that if you get accepted into a program, or when you get accepted to a program, ask them those types of questions about, well, what does the flexibility look like as it relates to maybe vacations or maybe time off from the program? Is it really strict as regards that you have to be in the lab every day? But those sorts of questions are important to know what your experience is going to be like.
Yeah, I'll kind of just piggyback on that, really like tuning into that flexibility. My sophomore year program was 8 weeks, and then my junior year program was 10 weeks. So kind of like that sweet spot. I felt like sophomore year I had a bit more of my summer left, and then junior year not so much, but it was still okay. I feel like what was also helpful for me was both of those programs were cohort based. So I think my first program had around 24, and the second one had around 9, including myself. So being able to also connect with other people and find things to do like after work, like the 9 to 5 or on the weekends, really is what made like the summer also super fun. Like you could be in a different state, in a different space, and with new people, really makes you get to like garner those like new connections, but also like do a lot of fun things. When I was in Baltimore, I had never been to Baltimore before, so I got to go all over the place, take the train to DC, go see my sister in New York. So it was like I really made like the best of each situation that I was in. And I feel like in any sort of program to do that really helps you get the best out of the program and the area. So I think that's just one thing to think about.
Yeah, so to add on to what Amira was saying, the program is, yes, for you to get an experience, but it's also an advertisement from the school to you. So ultimately, they're picking all these excellent students to go show off their school, show off all their really cool research, and eventually they want to get you to apply there and go there. So a lot of programs, if they're not leaning too much on their prestige, will, take care of you. They'll take you to field trips. They'll show you different events and different landmarks. And like Amira said, you have a cohort, so there's always road trips that you could do. For example, I told you a little bit how my kind of situation went financially, how, they put us up in a hotel, they had continental breakfast, they had happy hour after, they, shuttled us back and forth to the school and back to the hotel. And, yeah, oftentimes they paid for our field trips, like whether it was to the museum or somewhere else. We had a dinner. They took us to a conference in Washington, D.C. When, my program was in Dallas. So they definitely try to, win you over. So I would definitely talk to previous students that went to those programs. Nowadays, you'll have LinkedIn and you can see all the alumni from these programs. So when you're applying and you're choosing between programs, I would definitely, reach out to them. And I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you.
Perfect. And now I'm going to pass the mic to Manny to handle the audience questions. So please continue to enter your questions into the chat and we'll try to address them before we end the session for the night.
So this is, sorry, I hope I pronounced these names right, but this is a question from Ara Okolo. And it's asking about tips for expressing research in research areas you don't have direct experience in, and how to approach the essay in general, more narrative approach and other more formal. So it seems like, yeah, like they're asking about how to talk about their research, and then how to like integrate that into their personal statement and essay.
Oh, okay. So I think I got it. Okay. So I would say maybe you could craft it in a way of like, well, talking about first what you have had experience in and why that kind of motivates you to broaden that scope. So to move into this other area. So while as you can say something like, I've had research experience before looking into cardiovascular disease, but I wanted to figure out what the world of other chronic illnesses was like. So that's what, maybe encouraged me to do diabetes related research or whatever. And so I think just trying to find a bridge or a way to maybe expand your scope, because a lot of science is interdisciplinary anyways. Oftentimes you're going to find yourself working with people that aren't necessarily in one department. And so finding out a way to bridge methodology, maybe that you might have learned from class, into the narrative as well could be something useful, whether that was just basic cell culture, whether it was something else, like just figuring out how to bridge it together. And I think that if you do it in a way that's succinct, it would make sense. It wouldn't be too hard to do. So just think about it a little bit. And I think you'll kind of figure out some things.
Yeah, kind of adding on to that, I feel like it also is definitely program dependent. Like I remember my sophomore year, like applying to public health programs, I knew I was really interested in public health, specifically international health. So I leaned on experiences from like studying abroad to my family being from Nigeria, talking about my own personal experiences within medicine and just overall within the scope of global health was kind of like how I focused my personal statement on, considering I didn't have any like experience or research experience to that would really explain why I was interested in their public health program. So I'd say in that case, I went a bit more narrative, but after the fact, when junior year, when I was looking more at research or clinical research, I kind of focused a bit more formal and talked about my prior experience, like what the research project I worked on, the end result, and things like that in that personal statement for those programs.
So this kind of helped to answer the next question as well. This is a great question here from Hannah. How did you make yourself a competitive applicant without any prior research experience? Would it be wise to apply if I only have a semester of science?
Oh yeah, I think so. I would I would say yes. A lot of these experiences they're meant to expose you to research. They're meant to expose you to lab techniques. They're meant to actually show you the world of what this research is. And so they're not looking for anyone that are well. I'll say it depends on the program, but many of them are not looking for anyone that any in particular individual that has like 3 or 4 semesters of research under their belt. So I would say definitely don't feel discouraged to apply, because a lot of people are coming off of the basis. We all start somewhere, so we're coming off the foundation of not having any research at all, and that's how we all got our start at some point. Some people might be a sophomore, some people might be a junior, you might be a freshman. So absolutely apply. Half the battle is applying. So if you don't apply, you might never know.
Yeah, echoing that. I mean, I totally agree with that. I feel like even when you like just with like, oh, I only have 1 semester of science, also note that a lot of these programs, when they say like freshmen, like or sophomores or juniors are eligible to apply, they know for like a lot of the first year students don't have a lot of experience, but they're telling you you're eligible to apply. So that's something to take into consideration when you apply to these programs, is like they're not expecting you to have like 6 publications, 4 research experiences, and all these things under your belt when they're asking freshmen or first year or second year students to apply to their programs. So I always say apply. I feel like it's always better to apply and get rejected rather than what if, because a what if, well, you weren't able to actually take an action. So I feel like if you take an action and see what the result is always better than doing nothing at all.
So I can maybe give it a little bit more time to see if we have any more questions in the chat. Hannah said thank you, and I also like just to add, I like what you all said, and I think something Alonzo mentioned was that like you can talk about your experience if that hopefully that maybe that science class had a lab or something, doing any techniques that you might have learned in the lab, rather than like necessarily like having a whole like separate like research project or experience. I have a question. So I'm wondering about mindset. What kind of mindset did you guys like kind of like once you got decided the program that you were going to go into, and now you were trying to gear yourself up to really get the most from this experience? Like what kind of like mindset, did you go in like with certain intentions and goals and things of that nature? Like what do you think is a best way for somebody that has now landed that position to try to just like get the most of the experience and make sure they're really like prospering and learning and also maybe, figuring out what they're interested in?
Someone else can go first. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of jumping in. But I would say just be open to everything, any and everything. Honestly, that's how I approached a lot of these opportunities when I did secure them. And I knew I was going to be on a campus, right? A medical campus, more likely than not, for 2.5 months or 2 months at a time. There were going to be many different things going on. There's seminar series that are taking place. There are all types of lectures. There's so many things going on. And so I would say that one of the mindset that I went in with was like, okay, well, I'm going to take advantage of everything that I come across, because I'm here for a limited amount of time. And I know that I'm here for a research experience, but I'm also somebody that's on a pre-medical track as well. So let me talk to students, let me talk to other faculty members and, just get some of their perspectives about my journey. Let me make some meaningful connections, and networking plays a big part as you go throughout you matriculate throughout your undergraduate education is going to be incredibly important, even after undergraduate as well. So networking, even with your peers or your cohort that you're in the program with, and then the faculty member, the supporting staff that are operating your program, the program managers, all of that, make connections with everybody and be open to any and everything. You don't have to be interested in it all, but at least be open to it, because it is something that might be offered to you.
Yeah, I would definitely second that. I really emphasize being open-minded. When I got into my program, I was thinking like, oh, I'm gonna work on some like global health project. And I got paired in health policy, and I was like, what? I don't know if I'm really interested in this. But then come to find out, I was like, this is actually like the backbone of so much in healthcare, which kind of geared my interest actually more into health policy rather than international health. So I think one thing is really important is to be open-minded about any opportunity that you get. Because one, you're already one step into the door. Like you've already gotten into the program. So that's already a milestone in itself. So that's a lot. I feel like that is a way to think about things in terms of just looking at opportunities. And as well as I'd say being an eager beaver as well, in my junior year and through my program, I was really interested in shadowing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is Mayo. I got to see everything. So I also reached out to physicians that were alums from my undergraduate institution, because I'm like, they'll probably more likely be more responsive if I throw my college in there because they went there too. So that also gave me more opportunities to shadow on top of like the opportunities they did give us, which was cool because I also got to connect with like alum and like kind of pick their brain about their experience from graduating from my undergraduate institution to like now being like a full-blown attending. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I would say once you have the summer research experience and you're there, I would say definitely be a sponge. Like Amira said, you definitely want to go and ask questions and get involved. But also be prepared to work hard, especially in the beginning, because although it's going to be overwhelming at first because there is going to be a steep learning curve, you just kind of have to chug along through it and just keep going. And also be humble in the sense that, if someone's kind of explaining something to you, you don't want to be like, yeah, I already know that. Can we get something else? Like you just kind of want to go with the flow and just like be respectful of others. I guess that's like in general good advice. And then another thing is be confident. Sometimes you'll feel like you don't belong in these spaces because, the lab may look a certain way. You don't see people that look like you. I remember in my program, there's probably like 20 students and I was one of 2 Hispanic students. There's only 1 Black student. So it's like, you definitely got to just like be confident and know that you could do it and know that there's a reason why you're there. And then I'll also answer, I see there's one in the chat right here. Did you participate in research at your home institution after the summer? And yes. So I was in a lab in Dallas, and then that PI, I asked him, what other labs at my school do you know of that do the same type of research? And so he actually referred me to the lab that I worked at for 3 years during my undergrad. So this definitely can parlay into, more research, because especially in these specific fields, everybody knows each other. So.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and jump in right after you because I wanted to answer the other question, and I did as well. Not after all of them though. So specifically when I was a rising senior, I came and I started doing research in a lab. And I was also taking a class. It was a cancer biology class. So I was doing research in the cancer lab with my professor. And I think that it was an upper level class. So he might have felt more confident with me having research experience, going off to other institutions and developing skill sets that I could translate into his lab. And so I kind of served as like a research assistant for that year, my senior year. And so I would definitely recommend that if you do have access to research opportunities on campus, that's home base. I would say definitely take advantage of those even before you go into summer research opportunities, because at some schools, at many schools, they have those opportunities available.
Yeah, kind of adding on to that, I did something similar where my undergraduate institution, we partnered with, they partnered with Mayo Clinic on this program called Mayo Innovation Scholars, where we got to work with like from our institution, economic students and students that were either majoring in statistics or math on a project under like a PI from Mayo that was working on a project specifically like within Mayo Business Ventures, so some sort of product that they hope to release out into the public within healthcare. So I thought that was a cool opportunity. And I found that by connecting with professors on campus and like really eager to figure out what else can I do on campus that's really focused in research.
It looks like we have time for one more question before we have to end, but please send any additional questions. One last question I wanted to ask you guys, what's one piece of advice you wish someone had told you before applying for summer research?
I think I wish I would have talked to people that had done those research experiences before. Like as a lower classman, I wish I would have spoken to upperclassmen more to figure out what they did and what they recommend, because they also may still have connections from those institutions. So I think that's something definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, I would echo that statement. I feel like for me, after doing my summer programs, I had people come up to me that were interested in those same programs. So being able to connect with someone that, in terms of like the research that they've done over the summer, can and applying to those same programs can also be helpful because you can have someone that's really guided in the application process. So I didn't necessarily have that, but being able to do that for other people, I definitely saw that was very helpful. Being able to like help them through their like personal statement and knowing like from like front to back, like what sort of like applicants they do look for.
Okay, I will say this. It took me a second to think about it, but I would say also once you apply to programs, sometimes it can pay off if you want to hit up the program manager and ask them like, hey, I submitted my application. When should I expect to hear something back, right? And that kind of puts your name, I guess, in the mix maybe. I think that worked for me for one program because like right after that, I had gotten acceptance into the program. And so I would say that if someone had told me that earlier, I would have been doing that the entire time. Like, hey, when can I hear back? I've submitted my application. I think after submitting the applications, just hitting up a program manager, if you have a contact for them available on the website, that would definitely be something beneficial that I just kind of like learned on my own. So if someone told me that, I think I would have done that a lot more.
Thank you guys so much for that. I appreciate our panelists today for an amazing discussion. And we hope everyone in the audience learned something today. I know I definitely took some bits of information that me as someone that's currently doing research can apply. And going forward, we Grace and I have something that we wanted to share as well, a part of the announcements, but we're super excited to be starting a MAPS journal club. And everyone, please scan this QR code and sign up and register for this so that you can be a part of the journal club. We're hoping to, first of all, it's a great opportunity for SNMA, like medical students and anybody that's doing research, to present their research and practice for presentations. And it gives a chance for the whole SNMA body to see the work that the amazing students that we have a part of this organization are doing. And secondly, it just helps also intellectually speaking to constantly being around research and things that are new in the field and educating ourselves from a standpoint. And also we might have, like for me personally, I'm doing addiction research, but I don't see too often things in the field, for example, of cardiology, which Alonzo had been doing research in. So it's a great opportunity to see things that you normally maybe aren't reading. And if you have a presentation or an article that you found really interesting, it could be a good chance for you to speak on it and give a presentation, which will be really helpful down the line in our careers as future physicians.
Yes, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We will have our next session on February 10th, as Manny mentioned earlier. We will have a panelist of MD PhD students. So if you're looking at that track and taking your research to the next level, or including research in your career and becoming a physician scientist, that is definitely a session you don't want to miss. Have a good night.